Anyways, we're giving you the 1 minute warning. So if you need to go to the Biffy, which I'm going to do, now's the time. And we'll be back with you in about 60 seconds. So John, you're supposed to...
You know, large crowds intimidate me. So this should be a good night. How about right here? How far could I move before I'm in trouble?
You stand on the X, because that's where the treasure stands, John, and you're treasured.
Okay, well, welcome. We're glad you're here. It's the fact that there isn't as many as there sometimes is not a big deal, because you each know many people. You have large families. You have a circle of friends, and when you ask your questions and get the questions answered, you share those answers and the ideas with your friends and family, and it just spreads. We find that wherever we go in the province, we're well received. We don't get spit on too much by the Forever Canada guys, and they tend to avoid us because they know that we answer their questions and they don't like the answers. They would rather just stand and throw a tantrum, so we don't have much truck with them. Anyway, welcome. We're required to do some housekeeping things. Everybody knows where the bathrooms are. They're through that door on that side. There's 2 bathrooms there for the fellas. One's for the laddies and one's for the men. I don't know where the ladies is. And there's an exit through that door over there and an exit over there. Those are your emergency exits. And the way this is going to go is that we have 3 speakers, and we'll try really hard not to bore you. With the talks will be fairly short. They will consist of a lot of things that you might like to hear, but where you find out really what you want to know is in the Q&A afterwards. Once we finish with the 3 speakers, we'll take a short break, give you a chance to go visit the little boys or the little girls' room, and then we'll have a question and answer period where we try to answer all your questions. Now, normally when we do this, we like to start every one of these meetings with a prayer. Do I have a volunteer who would like to say a prayer to open this? Anybody? You're looking at me. Oh, okay, I can do that. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful to be here. We're here to find out answers to the questions that we may have, to offer our opinions, and to seek information that will allow us to determine our own future. The freedom of choice that thou gave us when we were born into mortality is precious to us, and we don't want to see it disappear. We need to have self-determination, we need to have agency, and we need thy help in providing that for us. We ask that thou would provide this help to us in a way and a manner consistent with thy desires, and do so in the name of thy beloved Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay, now the first speaker, you're going to be dazzled by my wife. Joanne is a retired school teacher and principal, and she's an exceptional researcher. And you'll find that out when she talks about the things that she provides you tonight. She's very well versed in the things that she's interested in. She doesn't know much about me. I mean, it's only been 43 years. She is a retired principal, retired teacher, and she has never wanted to sit around and do nothing. 30 odd years ago, we worked really hard at starting and working at the Alberta First Party, which was a party that had the same kind of an idea that Danielle Smith is proposing right now. We wanted the federal government to get out of our business and leave us alone. So that's Danielle Smith's sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. The only difference is we didn't think we should pay for the privilege. She also, when she decided to retire, she wanted to go somewhere warm that had water, so we lived on the beach in Mexico for a decade and a half. And I guess she got a little bored when she was there because she started a school in Mazatlan that was an Alberta school, certified by the Alberta Department of Education. Kids that go there get an Alberta graduation certificate when they graduate. She's a bit of a fireball, but since we entered this particular decade in which we live now, we both slowed down a little bit, but she's still very dedicated to this cause. So my wife, Joanne Reil. Here's the spot.
Okay, so I'm not a lecture-style teacher, so I'm no better at this than any of you. My kids were there to do things, not me talk. Anyways, I want to talk to you about democracies. And I hope and think that Canada's democracy could last some longer times. But I want to talk to you a little bit about what good democracies are and some signs that maybe they aren't as good as they used to be. First of all, most democracies only live for about 150 to 200 years. Can anybody do the quick math? How old is Canada's democracy? It's close to 150. It's 159 years old. So if democracies live from 150 to 200 years, we're in our old age, right? We're there. So view this stuff from that point of view. Most democracies self-destruct from within. Before they die, they have a deteriorating group of characteristics that they go through. Let's see if Canada's into any of those. And welcome, by the way. Usually, the cause of that demise is a prime minister or a president who kind of erodes or subverts the system. The same system that brought him or her into power. So they're misusing the system somehow. Let's see, is Canada at risk of any kind of democratic decline? Number one, a good democracy has a strong and independent media. Would we agree with that? Right. Let's take a look at Canada's. During the first elections of Trudeau Jr., the media treated him with kid gloves. Do you remember they used to say, his phrase was, oh gosh, now I forgot it. Sunny ways. Do you remember that? Sunny ways. Everything was sunny ways. Harper's gone, and whoopee, we're in wonderful, warm weather country. And that went on for a long time. In fact, they followed him and helped him present that face for 4 years, until finally, in 2020, we had another federal election, And after that, we had a minority Liberal government. Kid gloves were kind of gone, so he wasn't in honeymoon phase anymore. So he decided, and because of COVID, the ever-convenient excuse, that the media needed support. And that year he gave them, in 2020, 85 million of your dollars. It's actually kind of funny, because with COVID, his government also sent most people home to work or not to work. Businesses were closed down, schools were closed down, even the government was closed down. Everybody went home. So media should have had more audience viewers than ever before. Audience viewers brings in dollars. So why did he have to do that? It was supposed to be temporary. 2 to 3 weeks to flatten the curve. Yep, another one of those. But in 2025, the media support rose to $325 million a year. Over 100 media outlets in Canada got at least $22 million each. If you're a business owner, it would be a tough call to turn down $22 million. Another possible risk is, we said it was the PMs that would, prime ministers that would be working the system. Is there any indication that our current prime minister or the previous one, Trudeau, is or was working the system? Let's take a look at some possibilities. Well, first of all, we're all very familiar out west with the Emergencies Act. It was implemented when the convoy wasn't going home, and they had to get rid of it, so they implemented it. All things came to pass, and they were actually taken, the government was taken to court, and 2 courts found that the Emergency Act was illegally implemented. There's no justification or not adequate justification for it. The same day the first court decision came down, Canada, the government of Canada, decided that they were going to, anybody remember? Yeah, they were going to challenge it. They were going to appeal. So are they concerned about the rule of the law? Why would they do that? It's just a protect your butt time, right? Another possible risk. Bad governments empire build. That means they put more and more people into their government. Under Trudeau Jr., civil service grew twice as fast as the population. In fact, last year in 2025, they added 900,000 jobs to their federal government. That was the one factor that was keeping the GDP up where it was. It was not private businesses. The service, the civil service grew by 43%. That's unbelievable growth in 1 year. The bottom line of this is that the share of the resources that our government has raised from 12.8% to 16.2%. When they take money for their government, it takes money out of our services. 4% of their budget is a lot of money, and that happened in 1 year. Is our government, risk number 4, is our government usurping power? Now, Premier Smith would definitely agree that the federal government is taking away provincial power. Think about this for a second. Are they taking away us as citizens, our power? Has there been any cases in the last 5 years where they've taken power out of your hands? Certainly they did. And they use the COVID to do that. It is not legal in this country to mandate medical care to any human. In fact, it is not legal to do that in the whole world. The Nuremberg laws said nobody has the right to put anything in your body. And yet, I believe it was over 80% here took that shot. And they all had their own reasons. So, there's been one thing after another, but this is the biggie. This is government usurping power at rates or levels we have never seen in Canada or even the US. And I am including President Trump in that. In 2025, June 26, aren't we? No, we're June 25 right now, right? So almost exactly a year ago, they introduced Bill C-5, and that bill was the One Canadian Economy Act. The name is totally irrelevant. As with most liberal titles, it has almost the opposite of what the titles are that actually is going on underneath. But here's what it read. It said, the bill grants federal cabinet, I'd like you to read the PM for that, the power to override existing laws for projects deemed, in quotes, in the national interest. Now, in the national interest is a heck of a broad phrase. You could, if you're good with words, have absolutely anything in the national interest. If you don't believe me, just check out the environmental acts and what they've done under that one. Almost anything can come under that. Already in Canada, before this happened, our Prime Minister had more powers than any other leader of the world, except your dictatorships. Our democracy grants almost unfettered rights and privileges to our Prime Minister. He's not accountable to anybody. It's his party that elects him. It's not the people like in the United States. So really, only the party could get rid of them, and they're not going to cut their own throats. Now, what that does is, if you think about it, if, for instance, lost my place here. If the, let's just go with anything. If any law exists in the past and was observed and held up in the past, it can now be jumped over. They just don't have to listen to it. They'll just say, Bill C-5 grants us the power to ignore that for now because it's in the public interest. But it also does it for the future. Any incoming laws, if they don't like them, they will just jump over it and say, no, it's in the public interest to do da-da-da-da-da-da. So really what you're seeing is that one man, the Prime Minister, can take complete control over all of our laws. Our House of Commons is no longer our voice. Our voice doesn't matter. It's gone. They can put in a bill, he'll jump over it. We have lost our voice now and in the future. And there's no reason why that convoy challenge, the Emergency Act challenge, in its next court appearance, can't be handled that way. Because Bill C-5 is now valid. And by the way, that bill was pushed through without any parliamentary debate. So, taken one by one, the bills in the last year, and boy, there's been a lot of them, the Liberals are literally bragging about how much they did this last year. Compare that to the Montana government, who limits their government to 3 weeks, or did. I don't know if they still do, but in my younger years they did. And that was so that they wouldn't have a government making regulations here, there, and everywhere. Our government was paroled for 8 months, but it was by the government. Prorogued, not paroled. Should have been paroled. Okay. So individually each is concerning. Together they speak of a pattern, and some of these words have already come out of your mouths. I've heard them. This is a path towards communism. It's also the path towards dictatorship, right? And a dictatorship is 99% of the time how most democracies end up. So we started with the fact that we're 159 years old, and now we're looking at the fact that one man has control over all 3 jurisdictional areas, right? And it's a pattern that's really, really not helpful to democracies. A lady called Lydia Miljan, she's a professor of political science. She wrote some other concerns, and I'm just going to whip through these quickly. Canada has overloaded our welfare system. Anybody doubt that? Internally, too many people are living off of the government, and now we invited millions, literally, of newcomers, and they're living off the government. Anytime you get more people living off the government than working for a living, you're in trouble. Margaret Thatcher said, you soon run out of other people's money. And that's true. Huge stimulus spending. They have stimulus spending for everything. Of course, it was very high during COVID, but it continues. And your media is an example of that. Great dependency on government after COVID. When you shut down our small middle-class businesses, people lose jobs. Even the owners lost jobs, and they lost businesses. Canada's debt is now $1.5 trillion. We calculated this out, my husband and I. If it's $1.5 trillion, it's $46,875 for every current taxpayer in Canada. Yes, I can. It's $46,875 per current taxpayer. That's about $92,000 for John and I. At our age, thank you very much, Liberals, we won't be able to pay that off. Now, we're not going to be technically asked to give them almost $100,000, but guess what's going to happen? Taxes are going to increase because they already have, and they're going to go up higher and higher. So we're going to pass off to our grandchildren, our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren, one heck of a debt. And they're going to try and pay it off. And I think you all know, if you've ever gotten yourself in a case of big debt, you can pay like crazy at that thing, and you make hardly a dent in it, because most of it goes to, there you go. Last one, the inflation is uncontrolled. When you print a lot of money, right, that doesn't have any backing, same number of people, everybody gets richer, price of everything goes up. And that's what happened to our houses and cars. What we pay for those two things are ridiculous. And food, these are basics, houses and foods. I just want to give you a personal example. In 1970, I had only been working then I hadn't even. I started working in 1972 because I was in university before that. There was, let me get this right, inflation between then and 2025, inflation was 135%. That was the inflation in our salaries, 135%. But listen to this. The inflation in our house prices from 1970 to 2025 was 250%. That's why our kids can't afford to buy a house. Salaries, they could try and tell us, oh, your salaries have caught up, inflation's much lower. Hogwash. That's not true. So fiscally, Canada is in trouble. Fiscally, we citizens are in trouble. The other talk I do, I give a sheet, Alberta households are in, I'm just about done, darling. Alberta households are in more household debt than any other province in Canada. If our government wanted to change, it would be hard to recover from all this. Our government does not want to change. They want us dependent so that they can control us. You have to get rid of the middle class in order to control a population. They're getting rid of our middle class. Our only way out, in my opinion, is independence, because we can start anew, we can make a constitution that has our priorities, our values, our beliefs. And I want to just leave you with, may we have the faith and the courage to gain our independence from this failing democracy and the incoming dictatorship. It's going to take courage, but not as much as our mums and dads had to do for World War II. We can do this. Let's go, Alberta. Oh, I got to introduce my husband. Yeah, I keep telling him, say only a few words. My husband, John, get up here. My husband, John, is a is a former farmer. He's a former farmer, a businessman, and he was in the military. He signed up for the Air Force when he was young, and then as an older gentleman, he signed up for the reserves in the Army. He was also the leader of the Alberta First Party, the first leader of the Alberta First Party, eons ago. Some of you might remember. And like he said, that party had the same policies that Premier Smith is wanting now. They eventually sort of merged into the Wild Rose. And yeah, here he is.
Well, thank you for that. X marks the spot. Is this on? Testing, tasting. I don't know what I'm going to say tonight. I really don't. I always have fun at these meetings because I listen to what my wife has to say, and I listen to what some of you have to say when I'm visiting with you before we actually start the meeting. And all sorts of thoughts, random thoughts, run through my mind, and I grab onto one or two of them and hope they make sense when I talk to you. But there is something I'd like to read to you. I don't often read to people during these talks, but I'm going to read this to you, if I can get my phone to sort around. And it's almost out of power, so it may quit in the middle. Although this court has been in existence for the last 15 years, I thought I had a right to be tried in another court. I do not disrespect this court. I do respect it, and what is called by my learned and good lawyers the incompetency of the court must not be called in disrespect, because I have all respect. The only things I would like to call your attention to before you retire to deliberate are, first, that the House of Commons, Senate, and ministers of the Dominion, and who make laws for this land and govern it, are no representation whatsoever of the people of the Northwest. Second, the Northwest Council generated by the federal government has the same great defect as the parent, or the federal government. Third, the number of members elected for the council by the people make it only a sham representative legislature and no representative government at all. British civilization, which rules the world today, and the British Constitution has defined such government as this, which rules the Northwest Territories, as irresponsible government, which plainly means that there is no responsibility. And by all the science which has shown here yesterday, you are compelled to admit there is no representation and no responsibility. It is insane. Sound a lot like what we have right now? Anybody have any idea who that was who made that little speech? No. But I know that the fellow in the white T-shirt back there knows.
Only because he told me earlier.
That was Riel. That was the day his trial completed, and the Crown and the defense and the jury all recommended mercy when they found him guilty of sedition and treason, and the judge ordered them hung. We have the same government now we had then. Nothing has changed. Now, let's talk a little bit. My wife gave you some numbers. She talked about money. We have 10 provinces in Canada, 9 of which are in recession. Any guess as to which one isn't? Oh, Alberta. We send anywhere from, I have no idea what the actual numbers are, but anywhere from 23 or 24 to $40 billion a year extra to the federal government than we receive back in services and grants. Of that, Prince Edward Island gets 24% of their annual operating budget from that equalization. That's $0.72 billion. For Prince Edward Island, it's only the size of this town, for heaven's sakes. Anyway, New Brunswick gets 22% of their annual budget from that fund. That's $3.34 billion. Nova Scotia gets 21% of their budget, their annual budget, from that equalization program, which is $3.54 billion. I don't know if you understand how much a billion is. I don't. It completely boggles my mind. I cannot understand that much money, but they get it. But here's one that you might not realize. Manitoba gets 19% of their budget from equalization. One of our western brethren provinces gets 19% of their annual budget from equalization. And Quebec, those poor folks in Quebec, they only get 8.4% of their annual operating budget from equalization. Mind you, that 8.4% is between $13 and $15 billion, but it's only 8.4%. So we need to feel sorry for those guys. But let's really talk about what we need, what we get. We get, and there must be a mistake in this because it says we get zero. Maybe that's true. Well, maybe Saskatchewan does better than we do. Oh, Saskatchewan gets zero as well. Well, British Columbia, you know, they're in trouble too. They have that NDP government and their finances are in rough shape. So they get zero as well. I am a Canadian patriot. I've served in the military. I love Canada. My father served in the Second World War as an American from Kentucky. He served in the Canadian Scottish Regiment out of Vancouver in the Second World War. They fought for freedom. They didn't fight for Canada. They fought for freedom. If they were fighting for Canada, they'd have been fighting here, not over there. They would have been disgusted at what's happened with our government now. Absolutely and totally disgusted. They fought for what we have let go. We have been so busy in our lives that we have let the freedoms that we have taken for granted go. My wife talked about a bill that was just passed. When the federal government was taken to court over the Emergencies Act during the time of the convoy, the courts found that they exceeded their authority and they broke the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and they shouldn't have done that. Now, any responsible government would have said, oops, gee, we're sorry. What can we do to make this better? What our government did is they took the time to sit down and codify what they did to make it legal. So it's now legal for them to do what the courts found was not legal when they did it. Sort of like Forever Canada going to Elections Alberta and having their third-party advertiser status backdated to when they actually started doing it instead of paying a fine for breaking the law. That's our federal government. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about something different. I love Canada, and I want Canada to succeed. And here's something you may or may not agree with. The best way for Canada to succeed, to thrive, and to become what it promised to be at the end of the Second World War would be for Alberta to leave. Because if we leave, it would be just like our poor relation that we've been looking after for the last 25 or 30 years, when we finally boot them out on their butt and say, look after yourself. We would be doing that to Canada. And the fishery would be revived. And, 70,000 people, or between 50 and 70,000 fishermen lost their jobs when the federal government mismanaged the East Coast fishery. Then they went to guys who were fishermen all their lives, who were 50, 55 years old, and said, no problem, why don't you just go back to school and get re-educated? You can find something else to do. 55 years old? Sure. So they could restart their fishery. They had industry. They had development. But the same thing happened to them when the federal government said, no, we have these tariffs that we're going to put on when you buy material from somewhere else to support your industry, we're going to tax the crap out of it. They did that to the eastern provinces as well as to the western provinces. There was an outfit in Winnipeg that wanted to make barbed wire when farmers started to, want to fence in and corral their stock. And they looked at the market and they said, gee, we could make some money here. We have access to the material, we have money, we have the technical ability to make barbed wire, let's do that. So the federal government put such a tax on the material they had to bring in to make barbed wire that it was cheaper for the farmers to buy it from Ontario than it was to buy it from their next door neighbor. And that's been the history of this province from the day we came in. We weren't consulted about becoming Canadian. Alberta and Saskatchewan and the rest of the Northwest Territories were legislated into Canada. At least Newfoundland had a plebiscite. They had a vote. 52% of them said they wanted to join, and there's still a whole bunch of them that would like to leave. So what would we be like if we became independent? Well, I'll tell you a little bit. If we were independent, this country of Alberta would have more land than almost 80% of the other nations in the world. When Jason Kenney did a debate with Keith Wilson, he insulted us because he said Alberta wants to be a statelet. We have more land than 80% of the countries in the world. The other thing we have is we have a larger GDP than 80% of the countries in the world. We have a population larger than 33% of all nations. We have more farmland than 91% of the other nations of the world. We have a higher GDP per capita than 97% of all nations. We would be one of the most prosperous and free nations on earth. That's just, I could go into the detail on that, but I'm not going to because I don't have time. I can't take Chris's time because he won't let me ride with him when we go home and I'll have to walk. And it's a long walk. But we need to be a nation. Now let me talk about what is a nation. We are different from people in Ontario and Quebec. We're not the same. And anybody that's ever spent some time in Eastern Canada knows that we're different. We're doers. We're get the heck out of our way. Leave us alone. Let us get it done. In many parts of Eastern Canada, particularly in the Maritimes now, because of the history of equalization, it's what can the government do for me? We want one thing from our government: get out of our way. Stop legislating us into a stupor of inactivity. Stop treating us like children and taking our livelihood away from us by saying, yes, we'll give you a pipeline, but we want you to spend $20 billion on carbon capture before we'll let you build it. Quebec had the right idea. Quebec said, when they passed the act, what is it called? The Clarity Act, that's the one. When they passed the Clarity Act, the next day after the passage, Quebec passed a law in their national legislature. They call themselves a nation and they act like they are. Good for them. I have a lot of respect for that. They passed a law that said we're going to ignore the Clarity Act. It means nothing to us. If we have a vote on independence and we were successful, we're just going. You can take your Clarity Act and use it in the washroom. The other thing they did was they do a lot of things. They read the Constitution of Canada and they said, this is a provincial responsibility. This is a provincial responsibility. This is a provincial responsibility. This is a federal responsibility. We're doing these ones. You do that one. And they didn't ask or beg like we've been doing for 105 years. They just did it. Which brings me to the point I can say that our premier, if she wanted to have an independence referendum, can do it. She doesn't need anybody's permission. She doesn't need yours, doesn't need mine, doesn't need anybody's permission. She can just do it. If she wanted to have a provincial police force, she could just do it. If she wanted an Alberta pension plan that would increase our pensions by anywhere from 20 to 200%, she could just do it. If she wanted to collect taxes and then send the federal government their portion, instead of sending everything to Ottawa and getting back what they feel we should have, that she could do that too. So I agree with Chris. I would like to see a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. Where I disagree with people who want that is I don't believe it's possible. I and my wife have been trying to achieve that for 30 plus years. It's not going to happen. The only way that we're going to get what we need to have in order to be a nation is to take it from them. And we need to do it peacefully, politely, and as legally as we possibly can. By that I mean, we want out of Canada. Do we care what the Constitution says about 7 out of 10 provinces and 50% of the population? No. What we care about is what do Albertans want? What is our position on self-determination? What is our position on choice, on agency? We're just going to do it. And we tell them, no, we're not interested in that. Now, what do we need? We need national interest. First thing we need for national interest is unity. Now, that doesn't mean we all have to be the same color. It doesn't mean we all have to be the same religion. It doesn't mean we all have to think the same way. What it means is we all have to have the same objective, and that objective is individual freedom for all the people who live here. We are wonderful at recognizing and accepting minority rights. I'm here to tell you the smallest minority in the world is one person. That's a minority. Each one of you is a minority. That's the rights we have to protect, and everybody should get the same rights. And nobody should be allowed to breach them. We are, if you're a believer in a creator, we're the children of a God that created us. He created us with rights as his children. If you're not a believer, you are entitled to those rights by the very nature of the fact that you're a human being. You don't get your rights from the government. You tell them what their job is. You don't let them tell you what yours is. The second thing we need after unity is we need to define our borders and be prepared to defend them. I think we can do that. When I joined the Air Force in 1965, there was 116,000 people in the Air Force. That wasn't counting the Navy and the Army. That was just the Air Force. Now we have 68,000 in all three. We have fewer people in our military now than we had when I joined the Air Force, 60 years ago. We need national security. We need a military. We need our rights and freedoms, which I just talked about. We need economic prosperity and growth. Danielle Smith said that, excuse me, Danielle Smith said it was going to cost us $400 billion to achieve independence, to do all of the things the federal government does for us. Federal government doesn't do anything for us for nothing. The fact of the matter is that we send more money to them than they spend on us. So the real question is this: if we spend more money to them than they give back to us in services, then what is the real cost of staying? Never mind the cost of going. If we spend more money every year by staying here than it would cost us to leave, then I don't care what the amount is that we have to pay to leave, we need to leave. Because in the long term, we'll spend a heck of a lot more money by staying than we would by leaving. I have a great fear that since Canada's credit rating is a AA, and that credit rating is based on the inputs, which is dollars from Canada, and the bulk of those inputs come from Alberta and Saskatchewan, that they're going to implement a windfall tax and say, you're making way too much money. We're going to take a bunch of it because the rest of the country needs it in the national interest. Isn't that what happened with the National Energy Program? There's a lot of gray hair here. Some of you know exactly what happened back then. They took money from our province, and they took jobs from our people, our sons and our daughters and ourselves. We don't need that. We need personal and community well-being. That means we need policing, and we need a constitution which protects the rights of individuals. And you don't need special rights for special groups, because every time you have a special group, you have these guys sitting over here saying, well, wait a minute. They get special rights. I'm a group too. Let's get you and I. Let's us get on board for special rights. The minute you start creating groups where people get special rights and special privileges, everybody wants to be a special group. You can't survive that. Everybody has to have the same rights, and those rights have to be protected. We need good governance. I just read you what Louis Riel said about the governance that he was experiencing in his trial when he came back from the States. Sounds a lot like we have now, doesn't it? We do not have representation. We have a parliament that is, even going back to Trudeau #1, I'm ashamed to admit this, but because I was in the military in the first election of the first Trudeau in 1968, I wasn't 21, the legal age was 21, but because I was in the military, I got to vote, and I voted for Trudeau. I was young, I was stupid, but I smartened up real quick. I never voted for him again. Now, the thing about Trudeau is he knew what he wanted, and he was quite smart. He was an intelligent man. Trudeau #2 that we've had for the last decade had the same name and the same cachet, beautiful hair, but he's as dumb as a post. He really is. He's not a smart man. So he wasn't as dangerous as his father, but he had the advice and backing of somebody named Mark Carney. Mark Carney spent a number of years as Trudeau's advisor before he became the Prime Minister of Canada by fiat. And he has all of the negative attributes of Trudeau with the intelligence to make it happen and the will to make it happen. So we need to be very cognizant of that. Now I'm gonna close because I talk too much and Chris has given me the eagle eye over there. I would like to talk for just a second on courage. It's been my experience in my life and information I've received from others in their lives that courage is not something that we possess naturally. Courage is something we have to embrace. It's something we have to pursue, embrace, and make a part of ourselves. And courage is the willingness to do what needs to be done in spite of the fact that you're scared to death. So I'm here to tell you that what you folks need is you need to embrace that courage, to understand what's going on in this country, to worry about your kids and your grandkids. I see a lot of gray hair here. We're not doing this so my wife and I can profit from it. We'll be dead and gone by the time any benefits of independence accrue to the people of Alberta. But our kids and our grandkids and our great-grandkids are still going to be here. That's why we do this. Okay? That's all I have to say. But I know you can do it. I know you have courage.
Can I ask you a question?
No. You may not. But we will have after Chris speaks, we'll have a short break, and then you can ask as many questions as you want. Thank you very, very much. I have confidence in you. I have faith in you. I think you can do it. And I'm proud that you're here. I'm happy that you're here. And the fact that we are few in number doesn't mean a darn thing other than we're great in spirit. Thank you so much. Now you get the choice of the evening. You get to hear from Chris Scott. Now, Chris is a man who has embraced that courage. He's fought against all sorts of what one might normally describe as impossible odds. He was arrested and put in jail for having a protest on his own property, private property. He received slings and arrows from all of these Forever Canada patriots who so much love their country that they're willing to denigrate and insult anybody who disagrees with them. And one of the things that I've always said is that the only thing worse than stupidity is an intelligence with a closed mind, which is why we would really like to have people who don't agree with us to come to these meetings. And Chris will talk about whatever he wants to, and I never know what he's going to say, but whatever he says is always germane, well put together, and very important. Chris Scott, ladies and gentlemen.
I thought you were going to keep going, so I was...
Well, no problem. You want me to sing?
Yeah, no. Do you want this, John?
No, I don't want it. It's dead.
Oh,
it's alive.
It's alive now. Well, thank you very much. I actually prefer it when the other speakers make fun of me before I come up because then the pressure isn't on.
but now John has set the bar quite high, so I'm feeling a little anxious. So let's just go right to the Q&A. Thank you. Just kidding. I don't really have a heck of a lot to say tonight, except for thank you for coming out. You'll notice that we don't have a bustling hall filled full of people like we have experienced in the past. And there's many reasons for that, but none of them are important. What's important is that there are still people that are interested in this conversation. And as I was driving all of the kilometers around northern Alberta in the last little while, I've had a lot of time to think about this. And I've been thinking a lot about what my life was like before all of this, and if I would have ever attended anything like this. And the answer is absolutely not. I would have been out there on a quad or a dirt bike or something. I would never have been in here. As a matter of fact, until I was 40 years old, I didn't do anything that even resembled a political or town hall type meeting. And most people don't. But since then, I've actually realized that's not such a big deal, because that's always how it's been, especially in Canada. Canada is one of the most apathetic, politically apathetic countries on the planet. Very few people get involved in politics. Very few people do the things required to make change. But that's okay. Do you know how many people, what percentage of a population or society is required to be active in doing something in order to change the direction of that society? Just for guess.
20%?
I would say that the U.S. fought a revolution with 3 to 5% of the population.
The answer is actually 3.5%. And that's a study by some professor that Dr. Modry always quotes, and I can never remember her name, but I'll know for next time. 3.5% of a society is required to do the work to change the entire direction of that society. So when you see a room that's got, 20 or 30 or 50 or whatever people in a town of 5,000 or 6,000, that's actually pretty decent. Because if we all actually care about making a change, if we care to see a better future for us and our kids and our grandkids, and we go from these types of town halls and we share what we've learned with one or two people, we're doing massive work. That's a lot of people. We've done, I want to say close to 70 events since January. We've spoken to, thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people by now. I'm not sure exactly how many, but a lot of people. And those people are bringing the conversation with them where they go. That's what Let's Talk Alberta is about. It's not about telling you to vote for me or vote for them or support this thing or support that thing. It's about encouraging people to ask questions about these things. And of course, people will come and share their opinions about what they want to see for Alberta. But the encouragement is to have the conversation and share your opinions, share your concerns, share your opposition points. And then we talk about these things and bring these ideas with us where we go. And then for the next, rest of our lives, we continue to facilitate the conversation. What I've noticed since I've been paying attention to these things, and that's not very long, by the way, is that even the conversations about these issues are considered taboo. Like, we don't talk about politics. We don't talk about religion. And I've said this at every event that we've done almost. The two most important topics in your life, number one is politics, because it influences your life from before you're born to after you die. And religion is the rest of eternity. So I think it's important that we have these conversations. Now, in the last few months, the conversation around Alberta independence has accelerated dramatically, to the point that we have a question that has something to do with Alberta sovereignty as a referendum question that's coming in October. It's a very serious question. The question is asking Albertans, more or less, do you want to continue with the status quo, or do you want something different? I don't have actually enough time to tell you what the entire second part of the question is because it's that long. But that's the gist of it. Do you want to continue the way we are, or are we going to change something? Now the conversation expands around that, and the questions start coming. Some of the questions that we get have to do with specific policies that may or may not occur in an independent Alberta. Some of those questions are about what exactly is an independent Alberta going to look like? What exactly will the budget be? Exactly how tall will our first president be? Like specifics, right? And I understand it's a big deal and people want answers because they want to know what's happening. Now, I'll tell you, nobody actually knows. Not one person in this room or outside of this room for that matter knows exactly what will happen regardless of the outcome of the question on Alberta sovereignty. We do not have a crystal ball. I can't tell you exactly what policies we're going to support as Albertans. I can't even tell you if enough Albertans are going to come out that we can prevent those who want to oppress us from taking over a new system. I think that enough will come out because I'm seeing people get more activated and politically involved than ever before. So I'm confident and I do have hope. What I do know is that the status quo, the direction we're on right now, is not going to result in a better tomorrow than today. If you put yourself in your shoes from 30 years ago, I know it's hard for some of us. I was 16 at the time, just got my driver's license, had the world by the tail. The 90s was absolutely fantastic, almost as good as the 80s.
More the patch on the 60s.
Well, I wouldn't know, sir. But I've been told that. Anyway, think about you back then and consider if somebody came to you back then and asked you or told you, hey, 30 years from now, the government is going to shut the entire country down because of a flu. They're going to destroy businesses. They're going to pressure people to do things to their bodies, to take medical interventions that they may not agree with. And these medical interventions are experimental. They're not tested. They're going to tell them they're safe and effective, and they're going to shame people into doing it. Would you believe that the government would have done that? I wouldn't have. Would you believe if somebody told you, hey, the government is going to change legislation so that if you offend somebody, even by speaking the truth to them, they might fine you or put you in jail? Would you have believed if somebody told you a doctor is going to be fined $750,000 for calling a biological man a male? I wouldn't believe any of these things. And let's not even get into the dragging pastors down the street and chaining businesses shut and all of these things that we've witnessed over the last few years that have engaged us. None of us would have believed those things. And yet here we are today with the knowledge of the last 5 years fairly fresh. It's quite blurry now and it seems like forever ago, but these things happen and they continue to happen. And now our government is laying the foundation for state control, state surveillance, the likes of which we've never seen. I mean, we have bills being debated in the House of Parliament that would allow the government to remove you from the internet if they find that you've been offensive. What? I thought we have freedom of expression. There's bills, there's bills that would allow the government to open your mail and read it for your safety. Like, these things that are happening right now are not, they are not reflective of the Canada that I knew when I was a young boy. When I started school in 1985 or 4, I guess, something like 85, I guess. And the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the Constitution had just been repatriated, and it was exciting. There was a lot of patriotism. I can still remember the look on my teacher, Mr. Ruda, on his face when he talked about how amazing Canada was and why it was amazing and how we were free and we always would be because we had this Charter of Rights and Freedoms and we had this Constitution. And he assured us that it was a free country and the best place to live, and we should be so grateful. And you know what? I believed it. And it was true. But something changed. That very document that people celebrated back then, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, accidentally or intentionally put us on a path to where we are today. It gave unelected, unaccountable, lifetime appointed judges the ability to interpret and then make law that we had to live under. That Section 1 clause of their Charter of Rights and Freedoms gave the government an avenue by which to take your rights away. And I used to believe, or we were made to believe, that that could only occur if the government could prove it was necessary. And I'm actually okay with that. If the government could have proved to me, beyond a reasonable doubt, as happens in court, that me closing my restaurant and destroying my livelihood and sacrificing my future and my kids' future was the best path forward for me and everyone around me, who am I to argue? But they didn't even have to do that. All they had to do was say, well, we're saying that it's necessary because we say so. And then they did it. And it opened the door to all of these strange things that we're seeing going on around us. Laws that would put us in jail for offending someone. So that Canada that I knew, that I grew up in, is a distant memory. It's gone. And I'm sure many people in this room feel the same way. You might not share my opinion fully on this matter, but I can almost guarantee that no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, what side of the independence conversation you're on, you at least must acknowledge that this is a different Canada than it was when we were young. And when you start to dig into it, because highlighting problems and talking about problems is useless unless you're prepared to offer a solution or to work towards a solution. When you start to dig into this, you realize that the solutions just aren't there. How do we fix the systemic issues that put us in this place? How do we fix the systemic issues that have made Alberta, Saskatchewan, British Columbia resource colonies to Confederation since their inception? How do you fix that? How do you fix the unequal yoking of Western and Eastern Canada? You can't. Why? Because those who benefit from the current structure, the status quo, are the ones that control the conversation. They have the votes. They make the laws. They appoint the judges. They have the gold. And he who has the gold rules. So, we have some choices to make. Are we going to continue with the status quo, or are we going to pursue change? Now, if you're like me, you might believe that or you might want and desire that Alberta remain in Confederation. Can you believe I'm saying that? Fully autonomous, able to chart our own course forward, free of federal interference. That is my preference. I want that. I just know that it's not possible. Even so, if that's what you want and you believe it's possible, I would ask you this question. How are you going to do that? How would you like that to happen, to be accomplished? Because people have been trying to do that for decades. It really came to a fruition with the Reform Party and the West wants in. Fair things they asked for. Senate reform, a Triple E Senate. That is an absolutely fantastic idea, and it would have benefited the entire country except for the East. It would have fixed many of the problems that contribute to Western alienation. Alienation, not alien nation. And the Supreme Court basically said, never going to happen. Don't even try. They've been trying for decades. But they've never had leverage. And when I say they, I mean the Western provinces. So if you would like to see, as I would like to see, the provinces able to chart their own course forward, sovereign provinces within a united Canada, truly sovereign, you need leverage. Now, one province has done this. One province understands what must be done to claim, to take their sovereignty. Sovereignty is not something that is given to you. You take it. You earn it. You grow into it. And if Alberta has this conversation and we decide, hey, you know, even though you might be, what are they called? What are they called now? Dirty seppies or something like that? You might be a dirty seppie. You want autonomy for Alberta. I'm not a dirty seppie. I want Alberta, a sovereign Alberta with the United Canada. The path to those things is the same. We need leverage. And leverage is a successful referendum on Alberta independence. Or 2 referendums, 1 referendum to decide if we're going to have a referendum. But you get my point. This conversation and how we treat it will decide if Alberta is going to be able to change the status quo, within or without Confederation. It's a very important conversation. Now here's the part where I put a heavy weight on every one of your shoulders. Just the fact that we're going to be asked that question is incredible, if you know anything about history. In the last 30 years, I consider the last 30 years to be a more enlightened time than the previous 600. I mean, at least we weren't burning people at the stake for eating a tomato and not dying. She's a witch. But in the last 30 years, well, almost 30 years, there's been 38 new nations have formed. Only 20% of those nations had to fight and bleed and die to gain their independence. The others, they did it with paper, with laws, with conversations. That's where we're at right now. That's the blessing that Canada has. That's the blessing that Canada gives us. That's why these flags are up here. Because I'm grateful that I live in a place where I can have conversations like this openly in a public forum and nobody's coming in to shoot me yet. I'm grateful that I can express my political opinions without fear of persecution. Much. I'm grateful that I can even share opinions that are so controversial as Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable. Canada affords me that opportunity. And I'm very grateful for that. Because the majority of times across history, save the last 30 years, you don't get this opportunity handed to you on a silver platter. You watch your sons and your daughters go out the door and go fight and bleed and die, sometimes for decades, sometimes for hundreds of years. And eventually, you may be given the opportunity to decide if you're going to claim your sovereignty. And here we are, getting off our couch once in a while, going to a meeting, having a conversation, and we walk into a room just like this, maybe even this room, and there's a stack of papers, I don't know, a stack of papers in October. And one of those papers is a question on sovereignty. Do you understand how significant that is and how much of a blessing that is for us? No matter what side of the conversation you're on. If you believe that the status quo is beneficial, you are going to be given the option to voice your opinion on that and to decide. If you believe that independence is the path forward for Alberta, you get that opportunity to have your voice heard. And because we're given that opportunity, because of the gravity of that question and the historical significance and the sacrifices that other people had to make so that we can have that opportunity, we carry a very heavy moral obligation to know the facts, talk to each other, educate ourselves on the benefits of each path. And don't stop learning and talking and sharing until we can go confidently into that room, to that ballot box, and make the correct decision for us and our families. That's what this is about. That's why it's called Let's Talk Alberta. That's why it's not Vote This Way Alberta. It's because the conversations that we're going to have right now in the next, well, I used to say up until October, but now I got to change it up until October, and then from October until another time. I don't know what it is. But the conversations that we're going to have in the next short period of time are some of the most important ones we're going to have. So this is not a time to be canceling people and threatening people and putting people down, although I do frequently call people dinks when they deserve it. This is a time where we have to understand the blessings that we have, and we have to be, our actions need to reflect our appreciation for that. So we need to have the conversations. And they're tough conversations. Today I was hiring a drummer to come and fill in for Tamara's band. She's going to play at my cafe on July 1st. Please be there July 1st. There's flyers over there. And he was gung-ho, happy to do it, happy with what I was going to pay him. Yes, we pay our musicians. And then he phoned me back and he said, hey, where's Tamara from? Is she from Red Deer? And I said, no, she's from Medicine Hat. And he said, well, she's not that separatist chick, is she? And I said, yeah, she is, and I am too. I am also a separatist chick. And he said, well, sorry, I'm not going to play there. Click. What a waste. What a missed opportunity. What a shame that people are not willing to have a conversation with each other and find out why they're so different, they have such different perspective on this conversation. Now, if he continues in that manner throughout the next few months and makes decisions, his decisions will not be the best ones because he's not even open to hearing opposing opinions. And how dare we do that with something as critical as this? How dare we shut down conversations when the very reason we can have these conversations is that other people literally soaked the ground with blood for us. So when I say, I try and work in the Let's Talk Alberta to the end of every one of my presentations because I think it's like a catchy thing. When I say Let's Talk Alberta, I mean it. And if you disagree with my position, my personal opinion, that Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable, I want you here. I want you at the next Let's Talk Alberta meeting, and I want you to tell me why. Why do you think that I should support the status quo? Because if you can convince me that the status quo is the best path, I want to take the best path. So come and convince me. Otherwise, I'm going to hold another 150 meetings like this. And I'm going to share my personal opinion with every Albertan that I meet that Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable. I'm going to support my claims with history, with some law, with some constitutional stuff, with some examples of things that have happened that brought us to this place. And then I'm going to answer people's questions. And when I answer people's questions, and when I respond to their challenges, I'm going to change their minds, and I'm going to bring them to the side that shares my opinion. And if those people truly believe that my position on this is wrong, then they better get here, and they better educate me. If they don't, they're doing themselves a disservice. So that's my challenge. Now we're going to take a 10-minute break, because we always do, because we talk too long, and I'm sure everyone's legs are asleep. But when we come back, we're going to have a Q&A. And also, we usually pass around that little bucket over there, and we use peer pressure to get you to donate to support this movement. We're not going to do that this time. We're just going to let you go to the back, and if you want, please support what we're doing. It costs money to do this. We don't get paid by Trump. We don't get paid by Putin. Hold on a second, just a sec. Everyone close their eyes for a second. I got to send a signal to the motherland. We don't get funding from anyone. This is completely 100% grassroots funded. So if you appreciate what we're doing and you have the ability to do so, please support us like that. If you're watching from home, you can support at letstalkalberta.com using the donate button, or you can send an e-transfer to letstalkalberta@gmail.com. And no, this isn't about personal benefit to us. The benefit that I receive when people support this organization and this movement is that I get to keep going out to different places in Alberta and sharing my opinion and talking to people. That's my benefit. My benefit and what I get from this is the opportunity to leave the world a better place for my kids. And that's what I want. Yes, I want fancy things, but I'll settle for leaving the world a better place for my kids. And we appreciate that you help us do that. So in the meantime, let's talk Alberta. And before we talk, let's have a quick break. Thank you very much. I talk so long, my legs are asleep. Good job. Thank you.
I can't get my comments to come out more than about 3 or 4. And I don't know what's going on with my phone.
Just 1 second. We'll be back in something like 10 minutes-ish. I know we're always late, but thanks for putting up with us. See you soon. Do you want the music? Like the disco or the ducks? Ducks? Yeah, okay.
I expect a rousing session here tonight because every one of you we've had a lot of discussion among yourselves, and I know that my wife and Chris have been very busy talking to you all, so you must have a lot on your mind. So the procedure is this. If you have a question, you'll present the question to us, and one of us will respond. And then one of us who may want to talk more than anybody else because they like the sound of their own voice may also contribute. And know that, yeah, that's me. But what we'll do here is that we'll have the question, and I think, Chris, you want to just repeat the question for your people online, or do you want somebody to handle the microphone out there?
I could do that.
Just a second. Why is this not working?
Earlier, mine wasn't a real question, but she's a little in the air. I was just wondering what evidence you had that Justin was Pierre's son and not Castro's son.
I think the level of his intellect might be a good indicator. I've heard that there was a university professor that had Justin Trudeau in one of his university classes when Justin had delusions of grandeur and wanted to be an engineer, and ended up going into education. And even then, I don't think he did a good job of that. But this particular professor was talking, and he was caught by a hot mic, and he said that Justin Trudeau was the dullest student he had ever had in university. He's not a very bright guy. He really isn't. So.
Well, I know they interviewed Castro's daughter the other day and asked what she thought, and she had no comment.
No, it's an interesting question, but to be quite honest, I don't care. The man is a.
Yeah, you're right. No,
Can you
that's
run
good.
that for us?
Sure.
Okay.
Actually, I heard they broke up. Yeah. I think she told him that was enough. Okay, so we're ready to start. If you have a question, that fine gentleman there has a microphone. The reason we want you to use the microphone is there's a little thing on top because we want the people who are tuned in online to hear your question as well.
And not everybody at once.
Yeah, no,
Like
no
we're
rushing
we're
to-
tired of this stampede thing. We have a noise bylaw here with stampede. Get it?
Yeah, but you gotta talk to that to the people on there.
Yeah. One of the things I wondered is why don't you have more information on what Carney is doing to destroy Canada and let the people know that? Or would that be too long a list?
Well, I tried to give you some of those ideas. And you have to remember that Carney was operating for about 5 years before he was PM. And those things that Trudeau did that divided us, the bills that he did that gathered power into the Prime Minister's position, the executive position, the list is very long. The reason I focused on mostly the economics is because it's when the economics flip from being most of the citizens within a country being productive to most of the citizens being on the government dole. That's basically, sorry, I'm having allergy issues today. That's basically when the flip is made, and that's the downhill coast. You're up to the top and you're falling down. If we want to stop within Canada, what's going on within Canada, you are right. We need to know what he's done, what direction those things point us in. Everybody needs to know that, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do. We don't often know. We hear, oh, Bill such and such does this, and of course they can decode it with words that make it sound absolutely wonderful for the average citizen. And yet, you know something? That wonderful hasn't hit us yet. And so it's also very hard. My best girlfriend said, no, Joanne, you can't do all those because it was all figures and numbers and things like that. You can't remember them, but you can remember perhaps that when the economy fails, the democracy fails. I'm losing my voice here. You can remember that when a prime minister gathers the power into his hands, we're getting a one-man ownership here of us. That's dictatorship. So the sad news is our curriculums are no longer teaching a thing about conservatism, not even the word. If you ask your average grade 10 or 11 student, they will know about socialism, and they think it's wonderful, but they don't know, they can't even define conservatism. Literally, they have not heard the word. So, where does this happen? 1912, that they decided that the only way to keep a community, let's call it a country, moving in the direction that the powers that be wanted it to be, was to get into our schools. Because individuals live and they die, but if we can make groups that are indoctrinated all with the same philosophy, if one person dies, the group carries on. And they'll simply bring up more people to put into that group. And over my lifetime of teaching, that's when that, basically, from the time the World War II quit, within 2 years, they were already making their plans while we were resting on our patoots. So yeah, you're right. We do need to know what's going on in order to handle what's going on.
I have an interesting comment. So Jess and GP says, for each question from the audience and online, they're going to donate $10 to Let's Talk Alberta. So ask away. Oh, and there is a question online. Rose asks, could you explain that narrative about what and why Clifford Sifton said what he did regarding Alberta? Actually, it was regarding Western Canada. The book is Clifford Sifton, The Lonely Eminence, Clifford Sifton, Volume 2, The Lonely Eminence, page 93, and I'll do my best to quote it. I always get it wrong. Clifford Sifton said, when he delivered this speech on the steps of the Winnipeg legislature in 1903, "We desire, every Canadian patriot desires, that the great trade of the prairies go to build up our factories and places of work and contribute in every legitimate way to our prosperity." So he's saying, we want the stuff the West has to improve what we have in Eastern Canada. And if you consider much of the legislation from early 1900s that prevented us from having rail companies cross provincial borders, we couldn't ship our wheat unless the government said we could do it a specific way. We had to pay freight. The rules were different for Eastern and Western Canada. Even now, Western Canada has to have 10% Quebec milk in all of our milk here. You know, like there's all sorts of examples as to support Clifford Sifton's statement that we desire, and every Canadian patriot desires, that the great trade of the prairies enrich our lives enrich us in the East. And it hasn't stopped since. So when you consider that, and you look at history, you realize, you know, it's not that the system is broken, it's working exactly the way it was intended to. And I just say Alberta is grown up enough now that we should be doing something different. We're grown up, we should be out of that house, out of those rules, and making our own decisions on those things.
Did you say the questions from here or the questions from there?
Come on, guys, you must have something. No concerns? We can go home now.
You can state comments too. Anybody
Well,
have
this isn't a question, it's just a comment. And so my mom was a teacher in Alberta, and she would go to the ATA meetings, wherever they were. I was a kid at the time, so I'm not sure if they were in Edmonton or somewhere, or Grand Prairie. And she would go on the phone-in line on CFGP and talk against the socialism that was being foisted on the teachers at that time. Mom was born in Russia. She knows what totalitarian is, and she talked to me, and I've talked to our kids about it, and it seems as if Canada is asleep at the switch to what's happening. So just the other day, I was in Labrador, and somebody asked me, so what's with this Alberta stuff? And I said, well, we are tired of being told that the Bible is hate literature. We are tired of being told we can't use our guns. The bears come and take food right off our counter in our house. I wasn't back more than a few minutes and there was the bear already. Seriously. So we're just tired of being told everything what we have to do by the East, and it would be nice just to have a say over those that we vote in.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that the reason why Canada's like that is because we didn't go through those things. We didn't see those things. Canadians, everyone alive in Canada now was handed democracy on a silver platter. Nobody had to work for it, really. Nobody had to fight for it. You know, we had to fight for freedom in different places, but we've had it here. And so the idea that a totalitarian regime can do those types of things is a completely foreign thing, except for in the history books. And unfortunately, we don't pay enough attention to history, I don't think.
I don't want to hog the time, but just one suggestion I thought of a long time ago. There's maybe 20 reasons why Alberta wants to leave, and I was thinking a good way for us in our travels, thank you, would be to, if we had something on a little paper that's very colorful, and it just had the contrast. This is what happens if we stay. This is what happens if we go. And it could be on all kinds of things like treating the Bible as hate literature. It could be on the equalization payments. It could be on the number of senators the East has compared to the West. All these things could just be on a little infogram that's colorful and attractive, and they can just read it in 2 minutes and understand the pros and the cons.
That is a fantastic idea. I think we're going to do it. It's done. They're actually right over there. If you visit the lovely Jessica, she's got a number of different trifolds that we put out with some of those talking points and information. And that's a great way to share with people because you can bring those and put them on a coffee table, leave them in the doctor's office, whatever. That's one of the initiatives that we're doing. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that.
And everybody else as well.
And to get to those trifold things, you're going to have to walk past a bunch of horrendously overpriced blue merchandise, which is also great conversation starters. Thank you for your support in that way as well. Another question, another one from Rose, and Rose asks, is there any possibility for pensioners to get a better pension here in Alberta? That's a fair question. I need to respond to this with a question first. Is there any possibility for pensioners to get a better deal on a pension right now as a Western Canadian?
No.
Okay. So this is what we talk about most, is the opportunity that Albertans will have to do something better than is being done now. Right now, if we want to do something better than the Canada Pension Plan, or if we want the Canada Pension Plan to be better, we really have no mechanism by which we could do that. Because we could elect people in Western Canada till we're blue in the face, and at 8:09, before our ballot boxes are open, the election's called, and we're along for the ride. So, what could we do in Alberta? Well, Alberta overfunds the Canada Pension Plan by $3 billion per year. $3 billion. So what we take in to what we pay out, there's a $3 billion difference. That $3 billion goes to fund CPP in other parts of the country. So right off the bat, even if Alberta started at zero, keeping in mind that the Canada Pension Plan right now is a money in, money out. It's not a huge investment fund like people think. It's a revolving door. If we had everything the same, we would be banking $3 billion a year, starting from now. According to the legislation that governs the Canada Pension Plan, and by the way, this part of it was advocated for by Ontario, because Ontario believed that they would be holding the bag for pensions, and so they wanted to make sure they had an exit clause. Well, the exit clause says that if any province wants to withdraw from the Canada Pension Plan and do their own pension plan, which is our constitutional right, they would be entitled to what they contributed minus what they received and the interest earned on that money. Well, when you do the math for Alberta, that number is $343 billion as of last year. Now, the chief actuary in Canada said, no, we couldn't possibly, it's not that number, even though that's what the legislation says. Not legislation that we asked for, Ontario asked for it. So, assuming we started with $143 billion, which is half of what the math says we're owed, and everything stayed the same, does anyone in this room believe that we would have opportunity to do something better for our pensioners now? Yes. With $143 billion, we could almost fund the entire pension plan by managing that $143 billion responsibly and earning a return on it. We almost could do that. And so your contributions would be much lower, or we could increase pension payments. There's some estimates that say we could cut the input by half, and we could double your pension payments and still be head above water with the pension plan. So short answer, absolutely. There is a very, very real possibility to do something much better for our pensioners than the CPP does, and all we have to do is take it. I love that question.
Why can't you give us solid figures on that answer?
Say that again?
Why can't you give us some figures on what the pension could be?
Why can't I give you some figures?
Give us some numbers on that.
Well, I kind of gave you some ideas. I can't give you exact numbers. I'm not an accountant. I'm not an actuary.
Well, how can you be talking this and we don't know what to think of it?
Well, you can find all the information in the LifeWorks report. The LifeWorks report was commissioned by the Alberta government under Jason Kenney, and they dug into the numbers, and they published a full publicly available report on all of those numbers, what could be the contributions and the checks, and it's available online on the Government of Alberta website.
Well, why is it you're not telling us anything?
Well, I just told you.
Give us some of those numbers.
I just told you.
No, you
I said
didn't.
by some estimates, your contributions could be reduced by half, and your payments could be doubled, and we would still have our heads above water.
Awesome. That's what half of
So
what
whatever you're
they
getting
owe
paid
us.
now, you get double that, Whatever you're paying out, you'd only pay half of that. If you were
Yeah, and if you want to see, like, don't take my word for it. Don't believe what I'm saying. Go and look at the report yourself. It's available for you to see.
So who did this report?
It was actually a liberal accounting firm that did it. It was a Deloitte? I believe it was Deloitte. They did it. It took them, I think, a year or something to do it, but they dug into the legislation. They crunched all the numbers like accountants do, and they came out with that report.
Was that report based on the $350 billion that we figure is owed to us, or on the half?
The $343 billion number that they came up with was according to the exact wording of the legislation. So the legislation lays out the pathway, and then people have to interpret it. Deloitte interpreted that legislation, and they came up with those numbers. It wasn't something that the government came up with or we came up with. This is something that a third-party firm came up with. And after that, the country kind of blew up and said, well, how dare you, Alberta? How dare you claim 50% of what over 50% of what the CPP fund is? It's like $780 billion. Why do we get 343 if we're only 15% of the population? Well, my question is, if we're due 343 billion according to the legislation, according to the math, it's the easiest language to cross barriers. I would say, where's the rest of the money?
Yes.
Like, where did it go? If all this money has been contributed and our pensioners are not getting treated very fairly, they're not getting, not a comfortable pension, where's the rest of the money?
That they do in Parliament, that's for sure.
That's right.
So how many, what's the number of people that contribute CPP premiums in Alberta?
I couldn't tell you.
Oh, that's what I'm asking. So it's pretty easy to calculate how much the average contribution would be, and then you'd know just how much money you're taking into the pension fund. And then after that, how many people will be withdrawing from that fund?
Well, I can tell you that we contribute about $9 billion, and our pensioners get about $6 billion. There's about a $3 billion difference that leaves Alberta and never comes back to our seniors. I can tell you that. And I wouldn't, if you're interested in this, which it seems you are, I would get that LifeWorks report and check it out. Everything is in there.
LifeWorks report?
LifeWorks, yeah. It's published on the Alberta government website.
Just an observation, when the $343 billion figure came out, one of the first things the federal government did was call a conference of provincial finance ministers because they were, wow, if Alberta actually took what they contributed to that plan out, it would cause a severe problem for the rest of the country.
It's actually more for us because per capita, we contribute more. But if you look at Ontario and Quebec, their total monies given in are greater, but that's because they've got huge populations compared to our, 4.5 or whatever it is at now, million. So we do. Yes, that's right. We have a younger, and our younger people are not all doing, entry-level salaries. We have some highly paid youth, if you're looking at the 18 to 25-year-olds. And it bumps up our average, way up. Any other questions?
Yes.
There we go.
I have, what's going on? Hello? Okay, there we go. I guess maybe I have a little bit of a background before I ask my question, because I attended the University of Ottawa in 2011 to 2015, and my degree was Canadian Studies and Indigenous Studies, and Stephen Harper was Prime Minister at the time. And I believe when he got there, he tried to do right by Alberta. But as soon as you get into what I learned when I lived there for 4 years is that cesspool of government of Canada, you get corrupted, especially by the Laurentian Group and the PMO office. So he got corrupted and he couldn't do anything for us. So anyways, my grandson wants to know who is going to be the premier of sovereign Alberta.
How old is he?
He's 21,
He
and
can run.
he's a liberal. He likes Carney. I've been trying to change his mind, but it doesn't work.
I just want to pick up on one thing you said. I would prefer not to say that Harper got corrupted so much as Harper got wise to how prime ministers are elected. The seats for both parts of our House, but especially for the House of Commons, are not, we think we have representation by population. We don't. In fact, the maritime provinces all have well, they only have one, but they have too many seats for what their population demands. Mm-hmm. We in the West have too few. The same thing is in the Senate. They have populations that are less than, some of them, 1 million, and they have the same 6 number of seats in total that we do in Alberta. And we've got, in fact, they're less than 100,000 down there, aren't they? Some of them. So when John usually talks, he says, any representative figures out within the first week of being there that it's their job to get back in office. And so they do what is expedient.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, yeah, living there for 4 years, it's definitely a different culture in Eastern Canada. And because I'm bilingual, I wanted to work for the Government of Canada after I finished my degree. But after living there for 4 years, I thought, I'm out of here. I'm going back west. So it's very different.
I want to ask you one question before you put it away. How were you treated as a Westerner in that establishment down there, even though you could speak French?
Oh, funny you should ask that. So I went to the post office, I went to get my driver's license from Alberta to Ontario, and I speak French, so I did it in French. And she looks at my driver's license and she says, "You're from Alberta?" And I go, "Yeah." And she goes, "How come you speak French so well?" I said, "Because it was my language I learned at home, because my grandparents were from Quebec, but I took some classes with people from Quebec, and we were just talking one time, and they go, "Oh yeah, Quebec and the ROC." And I said, "What's the ROC?" Quebec and the rest of Canada. So I learned that too.
I was in Ottawa on that convoy, and I think the second day there, all the French truckers were there, and I never got hugged so much in my life. Yeah. When they found out that the French truckers are, in that, for what I see, was quite a bit different from some of the people, and there's some nasty people in Ottawa, I can tell you, some people that live there. But yeah, I ended up with a bunch of stickers. I used to have them on my truck still. These French stickers from these French truckers.
Yeah, we have a lot more in common than we knew, right?
The separatist part, I think, is really catching on.
Yep. Another question here. The question is, how many countries that did separate from the bigger countries fail in doing so? And I looked this up really quickly, and what I got was kind of a little bit shaky, but it looks like about 10%. And then I went and asked why. Why did they fail? And the answer I got was it was generally due to pre-existing things like ongoing civil war, poor economy, those types of things that they failed. None of the things that apply to Alberta. So it appears as though over the last, I think that was 100 years or 150 years, the vast majority of nations or of regions that split from their parent nation were quite successful, and most of them still exist to this day. Now, I do have a couple more that I want to go through real quick here before we take another one. Where did it go? Rose asks, is there any protection for Albertans from suffering the heinous Bill C-9 law that Canada is pushing? The only thing we have is our provincial government, really, if they're willing to use the notwithstanding clause and not enforce the laws. But other than that, there really isn't any way that we can be effective in protecting ourselves from those types of laws, unless our government here will do it. And there is one more. Sorry.
Rose is really helping us out.
Rose is awesome. Show them cam, Rose. Oh, there it is. Okay, so Jess and GP asks, do you think you'll get less of a pension in Alberta or less with Canada? And that's for you folks. Do you think Albertans working together and deciding what our pension looked like would offer us a better pension than CPP or a worse pension? Way better one. I agree. And at the very least, it's an opportunity that Albertans could decide, right? That's the whole key.
Just an observation about the CPP, that regulation, the law that Chris was talking about also says that if a province were to opt out of CPP, they must provide a pension at least equivalent to that which was provided by the CPP. At least equivalent. Doesn't stop us from paying more. So it cannot be worse than what you get now. It can't be, because the law says we can't opt out unless we assure and ensure that the pension that we pay is at least equivalent to the one that we had under CPP.
Beerweiser 143 asks, how do we get the undecided to engage? Does anybody have any ideas on how we can get the undecided to engage one way or another on this conversation?
I invited several friends to come to the Let's Talk when it was. Sorry. I invited several friends to come to the Let's Talk Alberta, because they have a lot of questions and I answer them to the best of my knowledge, and I too love to do research. It was going to be in Sexsmith, and then that one got canceled, right? But they weren't coming. They just, oh, no, we don't want to get involved in politics. And I said, well, even if you don't want to get involved in politics, politics is going to get involved with you. And then I brought C9 up.
And that's a great point, and that's fair. A lot of people don't come to these things. So then what do? We have to become ambassadors for the conversation ourselves. We have to be able to answer these questions where the people are at, because they won't all come to these meetings. Probably less than 0.5% of Albertans will come to these meetings. But the people that come, if you guys educate yourselves on these things and don't take our word for it, research it when you get home, look it up right from the source documents, then you can answer those questions, and those people will get the answers and the conversation they need as well. That's a good question.
Well, if we separate, I mean, we're not going to pay Canada all this money and then get a little twiddle back, and they're going to give India $8 billion or $800 billion, and France $800 billion, and everybody else all this money. I mean, that's going to be money in Alberta. We don't even have to improve what we do right now. We can actually cut back on how much oil we produce, how much, become a self-sufficient country first, and then sell to the world what we want, not suck hole to the world to sell what we need. And so we can cut back on our income tax. We can cut back on our what we pay the government in taxes. Oil, everything should pay our taxes. We shouldn't have to have a tax on our buy and sell.
Well, if you want my opinion, I agree. I think income tax is immoral. I don't think any man or woman should be compelled to give what they earn, the value they create. Like your paycheck, it's not just dollars. It's literally it's a metric on how much of the time of your life you've given up, right? That's what it is. And nobody should be compelled to give that at all. There's other ways of generating revenue, and you've described some of them. I'm an advocate for a consumption tax on a sliding scale. So you buy a Lamborghini, you're going to pay a lot of tax. You buy groceries, you're not paying any tax. You buy a ski boat, maybe you'll pay a moderate bit of tax, But there are better ways to do it. And the opportunity is that Albertans for the first time can decide.
Well, we don't need a government of 400 people to tell.
Bingo.
I mean, that's the whole problem we got. We got way too many people in our government telling a few people what they can do and what they can't do and how much taxes they're going to pay. So we would save money hand over fist if we had people in charge that knew what they were doing and weren't there just to fill their bank accounts.
Conservatives are all about small government, right? Right? Usually, that's part of conservatism. The NDP hired 46,000 public servants
Yeah.
when they took office. How many did our conservative government fire?
None.
Zero.
None.
Zero. None. Isn't that interesting?
But I mean, right now in this town, we have people in other parts of the country telling us what we can do. Like, I want to put a fence around, for 5 years, I've wanted to put a fence around I wanted to put a fence around my property. And you fill out applications and you pay for the,
You gotta
Talk
put
to
it
her.
really close.
Yeah, you gotta talk to her.
fill out the application. Is that better?
Yeah?
Anyway, they fill out the application, you pay for the application, and then it goes to council, and I'm sorry, no, we can't do this. Well, then,
It's your land.
it's
and we have
not.
a big-
No,
But it
it's
ain't,
not
no.
in this country.
But it's not.
and if you go ahead and do, according to them, I put it up 3 years ago, I put the fence up, they made me take it back down. If I didn't take it down, then they would have a contractor come and take it down, and I'd get the bill. I said,
in a small community.
I did not buy a piece of property to have some total stranger telling me what I wanted to put on it.
Well, I hate to tell you folks, but you don't have property rights in Canada. It was specifically excluded from the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It's not in the Constitution. And when you buy land here, you're not buying land. You're buying the feudal rights to exist on that land and transfer the title to somebody else. That's why it's fee simple. You do not own the land. If you did own the land, they wouldn't be able to take it from you if you stopped paying the tax on that land. You pay the tax for the benefit of continuing to have care and control of that land. That's
You don't have control, though. You don't have
well,
control.
that's exactly it. You only have the care and control that the bureaucracy will allow you.
Yeah,
And if you don't agree with it, it doesn't matter, right? So this is something that can be remedied, but certainly not in this system and not in this structure. It was very intentional and specific that happened.
Yes.
There's only a few people in Alberta that own their land. They have allodial title to their land. They actually have title. That's the railway and anyone that bought land from a railway before the government changed the rules. So you bring up a very interesting point.
Yeah, we should change that one if we get to be independent.
Yes, we should own our land, 100%. 100%.
Way back when we had the Alberta First Party, one of the planks in our platform was that property tax is a method for the government to ensure that you don't own the land and you pay that rent forever and ever and ever. And if you don't pay the rent, they take the land away. So yeah, a free Alberta would have to have property rights entrenched. And I'm with Chris on this. Consumption tax is the only way to go, and the necessities of life should not be taxed.
And you shouldn't pay a tax on a tax, which we're not supposed to anyway, but we do, don't we? I have another question here. My husband wants to know if Alberta needs the permission from the King of England in order to separate. No.
No.
Certainly not. No. We can send him a letter. Oh, and sorry, before we get to the next one, I have a correction. Andy pointed out I was incorrect. It wasn't Deloitte. It was actually LifeWorks. LifeWorks was the name of the firm that did the report, not Deloitte. So I was wrong there.
So was I.
So, what's the holdup with Daniel Smith? Let's separate. I'm a Gen Xer. Most of us here, I think, are Gen Xers. Let's do it.
Well, it's only going to happen if we make it happen, right? We have 5.5 million people in Alberta and growing, 2.8 million electors, and they each have a say. So we can't just do it. We have to advocate
What's the
for it.
holdup?
Us. It's us. We need the courage to do the things that are required to make these changes, right?
So we've most of us here have signed the petitions.
Oh, sure. Yeah, of course. We've been doing the work, but there's a lot more work to do. It's not just us in this room, right? This is a conversation that has to go out to every elector in Alberta, and they all have to be presented with different opinions, facts. They have to be educated on history and all these things so they can make a good decision, right? And that's the more work we're willing to do as individuals, the faster this goes. But historically, we haven't done that. We've ridden the momentum wave when it's all exciting and people are waving flags, and then when it's not, or when the rooms aren't very full anymore, we just kind of go back to our thing. We can't do that anymore. We have to change the way we think. We have to just continue. We have to focus on the goal, where we want to go, and just keep going there. And we have to stop letting politicians distract us, right? The distractions that I've seen in the last 5 years have derailed and taken the wind out of the sails of Alberta's sovereignty half a dozen times. We're all fired up, we want to do something, and then, oh, just support this, and we're going to fix everything. And people, yay, we're going to support this politician, they'll fix everything. And some of us are standing on the side like, are you crazy? This is exactly what they did last time, and we have to wait for that to go over, whatever, and then people, oh, wow, that didn't work. Yeah, imagine that. We just need to keep going that way. But it's like herding cats. But the best, I don't know the best way to herd cats, but basically it comes down to what are we willing to do, and how much courage do we have to make the changes necessary to achieve our goal.
I was just going to refer you back to the Louis Riel comment. We're fighting the same battles we were then. We got to get serious. And here's the deal. 3 of us up here can't do it. Even though we have over 20 speakers in Alberta, we can't do it. We can't reach everyone. Those people that we need to reach are in your workplaces, in your neighborhoods, in your communities, working at some kind of recreational space. You got to get brave enough. It's uncomfortable, but you've got to get brave enough to start the conversation. We started a conversation tonight, and there's a gentleman here because of it, and his wife, right? He doesn't need convincing. We do it every time somebody comes in. Yeah, he doesn't need convincing, because I'm not sure if we started it or he started it, but we talked. Did you start it? I think we were being polite. And and that's an important point. You don't need to be polite.
You kind of have to wonder, when they come into a restaurant, though, and they say, you sit down like you did tonight, you have to kind of judge.
Feel them out, right?
Yeah.
But you know what? We shouldn't be worried about that. If you're doing the right thing, do the right thing. This is not just right for you and me. This is right for all Albertans. They just don't know it. They have no information that leads them to the conclusion that is best in their best interest.
Well, just to be clear, we're not telling people what the right thing is. Like we have our opinions, and I hope and pray that people will challenge the opinions if they disagree. That's the whole point of a town hall, right? We're very opinionated. It's I kind of wear it on my sleeve. I actually even wearing it underneath this shirt. You can probably see it. But that's the idea. Don't be scared to share your opinions, and then be prepared to field the questions and opposition when you get it.
Just an observation. How many of you folks, most of you have lived a little while, how many of you folks ever been in a situation where you've had to step outside your comfort zone? Some situation in life has turned up and you have to do something that's really, really, really different, something you've not done before. I would wager all of you. Well, now look at the government. When you get elected to the legislature, when you become a prime minister or a premier or a member of a legislature, it's a pretty comfy job. The idea that you want them to upend their comfort is really shakes them up. So the only way that you can do that is the same way that it happens in your life. You find that when you're faced with a situation where stepping out of your comfort zone is absolutely necessary for your continued survival in the manner in which you want to survive, that's the only time you do it, when you're forced to. The only time these politicians are going to step outside their comfort zone is when you make them. And the only way to do that is to put pressure on them. And the only way to do that is to do it through all of the people that you know. You have to do it that way.
You're talking about courage earlier, John? My wife has a story of a holiday we just took in Whitehorse.
Go ahead.
Mitch and I just recently visited Whitehorse.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? So we went walking down the street and we chose a gift shop. We went in, we purchased some nice dried mango, and some nuts, quite expensive, very nice, and a few other little trinkets, and went to the till. And of course, when you're on holidays, everybody says, "Where are you from? Where are you from?" And so the cashier was from Ontario, but had moved to Whitehorse quite a while. And we said we were Albertan. And there was another lady behind the counter also there. And it was sort of like, instantly. And so they sort of said, yeah, Alberta's kind of in, this separatist mode or whatever. And we kind of said, we're separatists. We would vote in the referendum to separate. And well, we got called all kinds of names like, you spoiled brats. You can go home and you can have a shower in a hot shower any day you want. You spoiled brats. Get a grip. We got scolded big time. Mitch did his best to kind of talk to them, like we're having a bit of, conversation, listen to them. He actually, listened to all of this. So we left the store. I actually wanted to take my purchase back. I'm like, I don't want this anymore. How can I support that? So we took a walk. And then as we're passing the store, I said, I need to go back in there, Mitch. And he said, I'm not going in there with you. So I'm going to wait here on the street. I went in there and I said to the man, when the counter cleared, there was nobody in front, it was just me and him again. I said to him, you don't know me. You have no idea where we've come from and what it's taken to make a life in our province. And you get to have your opinion, but I need you to know that we're done. And what else did I say to him?
You said he's the reason.
Yes. Oh, yes. Okay. Sorry. Good thing I have a husband. You're the reason. You didn't convince me. You had every opportunity to make me feel warm and fuzzy to want to stay in Canada. You gave me every reason. I know which direction I need to go now. You solidified it, which direction I need to go. And I will be voting to separate. And I walked out of the store. Yeah.
Well, it's not always easy to share our opinions, and that is it, right? Sometimes we get reactions that we don't want. And what do we do about it? We can't control what other people do. We can only control what we do. And how we respond, and how you responded is much better than I would have. I can give advice and tell people how this should go all day long, but when I'm in these situations, I fail all the time. I am a hothead. I have a very difficult time with people gaslighting me and talking to me like that. And there's lots of times where I have an interaction and I wish I could have handled it differently. I'm still learning. Well, thank you.
You're biased.
What I'm trying to say is, none of us are perfect. We're all learning. This is the first time we've done this, right? This is the first time we've talked about these things and had to have these difficult conversations. And I think being able to get in rooms like this and share stuff like that is super, super important, because that's encouraging to hear how you dealt with that. I might have done something differently. I don't know. But now, when I'm faced with something like that, I'm going to think about what you said and how you dealt with it. And that'll be with me. So thank you very much.
So recently I was also in New Brunswick, and this topic came up, and there was a work crew there putting a new deck on the place where I was. And when this topic came up, they said, if Alberta separates, I'm moving to Alberta. And he's not the only one that told me that on that trip.
Jessica and I have been, that's awesome. Jessica and I have been traveling all over the place. We're in the United States. We've been all over Western Canada. And we have these conversations. And usually it's her that brings it up. I'm like the kind of meek, shy guy. I just like, I don't have the conversation. She's like, hey, what do you think about Alberta independence, right? And everywhere we go, people are like, oh, what do you mean? Especially in the United States. And we explain, like, this is what's going on. This is why we want to leave. And they're like, good for you. We hope you win. You know, it's always, I would say 95% a positive response, because at the end of the day, I think people, they respect our desire to self-determine. The majority of people know that we're not whiny brats. They know that we have legitimate grievances, and there's a structural problem that prevents us from controlling our own future. And at the end of the day, most people believe that people should be allowed to control their own future, right?
And people want freedom, and that's why they will move here if we separate.
Bingo. Yep, bingo. Jess and GP asks, can I count on Valleyview to come wave some flags in GP this Saturday from 4 to 6 for our Blue Mile?
They're already talking about it here as well.
Yeah, and I think so, because they were talking about it when we got here. There's more questions, too. Jess says, we're up to $110, so I'll stop asking questions now. Counting their own questions. Oh, yeah. Well, no, they asked some questions as well, so they're counting their own questions. So thank you very much. That's awesome to see that support. So Derek from the Unacceptable Fringe has a question. How is your life now? How affordable is it now? How affordable and livable will it be if we keep going down this path? Give me one reason to stay. Just like you said, you know, you've solidified my stance. You haven't given me a reason to stay. You haven't made me feel like I'm a valued part of this relationship. So I know that I need to go. And when I haven't had anyone give me a valid reason to stay. I wish that these rooms would fill up with thousands of people that could tell me all the reasons why I needed to choose to stay and change my mind, and then I could be part of the status quo and my life would be easier as well. But it just is not happening. It's not happening.
I was just thinking, like, this is something that happened to me. I have the Alberta flag on my car window, and somebody stole it. And so I put a sign in my window saying, you are being recorded. And so far, nobody's stolen my flag. But I had two friends that don't want to get involved in politics. And I've given them a ride, and they go, why do you have that sign in your window? And I said, because the forever Canadian people are stealing my flag and throwing my water bottle in the garbage when I forgot it at church. And I come back, I go, where's my water bottle? And this guy said, oh, somebody threw it in the garbage. I said, oh, yeah, those forever Canadians. So my friends who are, like I say, don't want to get involved in politics, they're going, well, that's just not right. Everybody gets to have their opinion. And I'm going, yeah, but it's those forever Canadian people. Oh, they're also been fiddling with my windshield wipers. So my grandson says, Grandma, just take it off. And I said, I have an opinion, and I want an independent Alberta for you. Me, I'm on my way out. But I'm doing this for my grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
My family say that the only way we have to stay is because I'll need a passport to come visit them. But I said, well, I got a passport already.
There's a couple more questions here, and I want to get through them because they're all worth $10.
Thanks for coming, guys.
So the Schwartz Awakens. Anyone seen Spaceballs?
Yeah. A long time ago.
The Schwartz Awakens says, what does the average Alberta know that the Indigenous don't know? Why at this point do they need to be consulted? That's more than average Albertans. What does the average Albertan know that the Indigenous don't know? Why at this point do they need to be consulted more than average Albertans?
I think that you had two questions run together there. Just read the first one.
What does the average Albertan know that the Indigenous don't know?
That the duty to consult is only if you have a project. It's not an election because
Well, it's
otherwise they can question anything.
yes, and that's actually the way it's written. It says the duty to consult applies when treaty rights may be impacted. Any provincial election could impact treaty rights. That's a fact, because one government might be more willing than the other to approve projects.
And then Smith would say, "Oh, we're going to do this," and then they could say, "Oh, but you didn't do to consult us." Like, can you imagine? Our government would not be able to move forward because they have all these duty to consult for everything and anything the Indigenous people decided. But they would do it for everything.
I think I have one more question here, and then we're going to have to. It's like 20 to 10. Wow. The real Steve Jensen, not the fake Steve Jensen, the real one, who's a friend of mine, lives at my RV park. He says, of the 3 types of constitutional structures being presented in the Jason Levine's upcoming workshops, which version do the 3 of each of you support at this time? I can't answer that because I haven't seen the 3 types. All I can say about Alberta's constitution is if Alberta decides self-determination and sovereignty to become a nation, it will be the first time in Canadian history that the people have written their own constitution. The first time. The British North America Act was written in England with John A. Macdonald, George Etienne Cartier, and some other people, and the English Crown. And then it was imposed on Canada. The opportunity that Alberta has is for the first time ever to do it ourselves. And we're about to witness the greatest experiment in freedom the world has ever seen celebrate their 250th anniversary. That's the United States. A We the People constitutional republic has maintained their freedom for 250 years. That's the longest out of any nation on the planet. So this is the opportunity that Alberta has to do the same thing. And I'm really excited about that. And Steve, I'm going to dig into that. If you don't mind, send me some stuff on that and I'll get you a better answer. And I think that's it, unless there's any other questions. Oh, sorry, you have 400 questions? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Jason Levine,
Jason Levine is presenting some constitutional structures in some workshops, so I guess you could just check out his page for that. And here's another question. How can Alberta trust a federal government that isn't accountable by its own actions? Well, we can't. That's the short answer.
So, Chris, when Czechoslovakia separated, did it become Chechnya and Slovakia? Is that how it broke up?
Czech Republic.
Czech Republic.
And Slovakia. Okay, so we're going to be Canna and they can be Duh?
Oh, that's fantastic. You know, I like the name Alberta. I'm gonna end with this. There's people that want Alberta to change its name. They want the flag to change. I like both, and I'll tell you why. I believe the Alberta flag represents our agriculture, our beautiful scenery. The St. George Cross represents a patron saint who stood up for other people, for his faith, right to the end. He was beheaded because he told the Emperor of Rome that the Emperor of Rome shouldn't be persecuting Christians, and he was killed for it. He wouldn't recant that. So I believe in standing up for others. When it comes to the name, Alberta is named after Princess Alberta. And the story goes that she cast off her royal everything and came to Alberta, or the Northwest Territories, on a train or something, with nothing, dressed like the average person, and lived with the people for a period of time just to get to understand them. And actually cared about the people so much that she wanted to experience their lives, and then brought back that experience to England with her. So, you know, I think that's a very humbling thing to do, and anybody that wants to be in a position of leadership or authority, if they take the time to get with the people and work with the people and suffer with the people, I have a profound amount of respect for them and the way they can govern after. So that's for me, the name Alberta reflects that, and I'm happy to keep it. But again, it's going to be for us to decide. So that's all we have for tonight. If we missed any questions, sorry, we will get to them after. I'll answer them online. But again, I just appreciate you folks coming out. Even though it wasn't a very big crowd, I hope that you learned some things and you're encouraged to take this conversation with you wherever you go. And I hope that you can be a beacon of the art of conversation to those around you and be an encouragement in helping to facilitate a better future for everybody. So thank you very much. Thank you for doing this. My pleasure.